If you're an entrepreneur, you know what it means to take personal and financial risks, create jobs that support your community, and devote most of your time to your business. But do you know how to plan for a successful exit from your business? Do you know who should be involved in creating your succession or transition plan and the steps along the way? Welcome to Finish Big, the podcast with Mark Dorman from Legacy Business Advisors. The podcast theme is inspired by critically acclaimed business author Bo Burlingham, author of Finish Big, How Great Entrepreneurs Exit Their Companies on Top. In this podcast, you'll hear success stories of exit plans done right and pick up practical tips based on years of Legacy Business Advisors' expertise and knowledge about the largest and most important financial transaction of your life. Now, on to the show.
Hello and good day. This is Mark Dorman, your host of the Finish Big podcast. Finish Big is based on the critically acclaimed book by Bo Burlingham called Finish Big, which we really seek to work with business owners successfully preparing, transitioning, and exiting from their business, talking about things like who should be involved on their team, some of the issues they may be facing, what they might have done differently. And I'm really delighted today to be joined by Craig Kohrs. Craig is from the Northeast Ohio marketplace. He's a founding partner of Velocity Capital Partners, or VCP. Prior to VCP, Craig spent over 14 years operating and leading his family business, TMG Performance Products, a performance automotive aftermarket company with brands such as Corso Performance and Volant Performance. In his role there, Craig focused on developing and leading a long-term growth strategy and the daily operations of the business, including building a management team that the organization could successfully grow and manage the business. This ultimately led to a successful exit from TMG Performance Products in June of 2022, and henceforth the creation of Velocity Capital Partners. Currently, Craig is the CEO of the recent VCP acquisition, We Are the Ripple, which we will talk about. We Are the Ripple is a mission-driven brand of reusable water bottles, partnering with local organizations to provide clean water access to schools and villages in African regions where water is not available. With his business partner of 16 years, Ryan Mifsud, they are attempting to build for-profit brands that can create sustainable, charitable giving opportunities. Ripple currently sells personalized water bottles to small business, corporations, universities, and consumers at www.wearetheripple.com to support this cause. Craig Kohrs received his BS in marketing from the University of Dayton, where he remains active as a member of the Business Advisory Council. He earned also his MBA from the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater in 2004. Craig is blessed to share this journey with his wife of 21 years, Shelley, and their children, Ella and Gavin. One's a senior and one is a freshman at Walsh Jesuit High School in Northeast Ohio. And Craig and Shelley are active members of the Walsh community, spending countless hours enjoying the passions of their children on the soccer field, theater stages, as well as participating in numerous leadership roles. Craig Kohrs, welcome to Finish Big, the podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate it. That was a little rundown memory lane for me there, so thank you.
Well, my pleasure. I know you're a busy younger guy, a little bit younger than I am, but a young man that I've always had my eye on. And I'm interested to hear your story, and I really appreciate your willingness to share not only your story, but the story of Velocity Capital Partners and your prior stay at the family business. So let's just dig right in. So you went to the University of Dayton. Did you stay in the ghetto there? Isn't that the main place to stay at UD?
It is. I liked it. I think that Disney's wrong and Dayton's the happiest place on earth. But yeah, we live there. I'm not sure we're allowed to call it that anymore. I think it is now officially the student neighborhood. But yeah, that is where I met my wife, and that is where we had a ton of fun. It's a place that I have nieces attending now and a daughter who's seriously considering it. So I am looking forward to Parents' Weekend should that come about for sure.
Excellent. You graduated from UD. I believe your wife's family, is that the Mifsud family?
Yeah, the Mifsud family. So they had started our family business was the Mifsud Group, which in a unique way, our family business was acquiring and operating a business over a long period of time with the intention of eventually exiting that business. And so that's really where the TMG Performance Products came in. I think it's important to note that both Ryan, who is my brother-in-law, which is hence the family business, this and I, before we joined the Mifsud Group and decided to go down this path, both of us went out and worked for other large companies on our own. I was in consumer products. I worked for what is now Macy's as a cosmetics buyer of all things.
I thought I had you kind of pegged for a cosmetic buyer.
Yeah, it was pretty tough coming right out of college and saying, "Oh, I know more about makeup than any of my buddies." So I spent about 2 years in Washington, D.C. doing that, and then moved to Toledo, Ohio, to work for Calphalon Cookware and Newell Rubbermaid. So again, sort of really focused on consumer brands, consumer products. Spent about, I guess it was 7 or 8 years at very different positions from an operational standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, product development standpoint, really through brand management at Newell Rubbermaid. We spent a lot of time learning and making a lot of mistakes, frankly, on someone else's dime. Until we got to the point that we felt comfortable enough that we could afford our own mistakes. And that's really when we got back into joining Ryan's dad, Oscar, and really trying to execute on a growth strategy for the Mifsud Group of owning and operating companies with the intent of eventually selling them.
Yeah. So when you joined the family office, which is essentially a little mini private equity type business, would that be accurate?
Good way of describing it? That's exactly the best way to describe it. We didn't have outside investors. And so it was, we're really looking at those small opportunities. Generally, we would find something where there was an owner operator, probably a founder who had built something to a point and then either needed some help or was looking for an exit, but probably something that hadn't been built big enough that the larger private equity or call it real private equity would really get into, because it took, and most everything we did took us running the business. We really had to build things from the ground up, roll up our sleeves and jump in, and those were the opportunities that we'd find.
Excellent. So walk us through at its height, Mifsud had how many operating companies were you involved with?
The most we really ever had at any one time were 2. We had 3 different businesses, 3 different exits throughout its period, all of varied levels of success, not all of them incredibly successful. Definitely learned some things along the way, but in the end, combined, it was a really successful way for us to create some value and really create a lot of good teams along the way that helped us be successful.
Yeah, great. And were you the least bit nervous about working with your father-in-law or your brother-in-law? I'm sure you guys had a lot of heart-to-heart conversations. How did the org chart decision making, how did that work there?
Yeah, I think it evolved over time. When we first started, I think we definitely there was, the father-in-law was in charge early on, rightfully so. I had not nearly enough of experience to make some of the decisions we needed to make, so it was great. And then that formal role, leadership role, really became much more of that mentoring role that you wanted. Wasn't always perfect. Lots of unique challenges when you are in a closely held family business. Lots of personalities, lots of emotions, lots of maybe competing timelines or thought processes. But at the end, as we were able to evolve and develop the skill set necessary to lead and operate a business, oversight changed, the leadership role changed, and more importantly, the organization started to see that we were operating the business. And, as that evolved, we all evolved into the correct roles as the business leaders that we needed to be. But yeah, to your point, were there times that it was tougher than when we worked for somebody else? Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot more personal. A lot of Thanksgivings turned into conversations about efficiency metrics, and a lot of Christmases were sales order driven. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't go back and change anything.
So the shining star of the portfolio companies that the Mifsud Group was involved in turned out to be TMG Performance Products. Tell us about that acquisition, the history, kind of where you started with that, and the exit. Walk us through that chain of events, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. It was a distressed business when we found it, but I think most importantly, we were looking for nothing like what it ended up being, and I think that's how all acquisition strategies go. We were looking for maybe a business that was more focused in aerospace or highly engineered products, or an area that definitely wasn't the automotive aftermarket. But at the end of the day, when an opportunity is put in front of you, you evaluate it, and we decided that it had some really strong assets to it. And those assets weren't necessarily the equipment. It wasn't necessarily hard assets, but it had a great brand that we thought we could grow over time. It was in a very unique niche that we believed that people would spend a lot of money for a good product. And so we decided to take the chance, and we started to dive in right away. We bought the business in January of 2009. And basically worked nonstop at it for the next 14 years. In that process, as everybody knows, there's lots of ups and downs. Day one, we were negotiating with suppliers to try to figure out what they were owed and how we could pay them. At the same time, we were out meeting customers and trying to figure out what products we had, what inventory we had where. We had customers that were declaring bankruptcy. We were selling to Chrysler at the time, negotiating how to come out of that. So it was truly that idea of drinking from a fire hose on day one. And I feel like that was about a 2-year process until it really felt like we fully understand the business, and we're making really strong business decisions that can be a foundation moving forward. But that first 2 years was truly survival mode. Everyone likes to go in with a plan on day one, but then you get punched in the mouth and it changes pretty quick. And I think that's how the first couple of years were for everybody when we were going through that process.
Yeah. How did you source TMG, Craig?
We actually, I wouldn't say it was through a normal investment banking search. We had a contact who we had worked with in the past who was made aware of it. It wasn't something that was high on our radar, but just relationships over and over again. We absolutely had tried in the past to use people on like a buy side advisory, but this wasn't that case. It was truly just a relationship with a person who was in the marketplace, who understood what we thought we could be successful with. And he just introduced us and said, I think you guys should take a look at this. And in all of our wisdom, we immediately said no, because it didn't fit anything we were trying to do. And then it just came back about 30 days later, and that's when we started to take a hard look at it. And then I think in December of 2008, we actually had walked away from the deal. And I think on December 30th, we ramped it back up and got the deal done in the next 9 days and owned the business on June 9th of 2009.
Wow. And may I ask, how large of a business was it when you first acquired it?
Yeah, when we first bought it, it had been bigger, but it was probably about, I want to say $7 or $8 million, so just high single digits. But it had been bigger than that. It was struggling with the 2008, 2009 time period, like many businesses did.
Yeah.
And so it had about 55 employees, and that's what we were able to start with.
Excellent. And so you owned that business for, did you say 14 years?
14 years at all varied levels of success along the way. But yeah, it was until so about 13 years and change, I guess, in 2022.
Yeah. And but just in speaking with you kind of off the air, so to speak, you kind of built it, or you purchased it with the idea that you would successfully, or hopefully successfully exit, we should say. So you always were looking to kind of build it with the end in mind. Fair enough?
Absolutely. I think the easiest way to describe it is there was never a thought that any of my kids would be involved in the business. right? That it was truly an investment we were trying to build. And that's exactly what it was, knowing when we went in that someday we would sell that business.
Mm-hmm. And was there a point in time where you said, "Hey, we're ready to sell this. We're all aligned together in our thoughts for exit," or how did that whole process go? And who did you work with there? You had outside investment banking representation. Walk us through those discussions.
Yeah, so we always had a great team of accountants and lawyers, and their job was always to keep us appraised. And as we were going through it, frankly, it hadn't ever really come up that it was time. I think we always, in the back of our mind, like anyone, would look at what we thought the value would be. But we were having a ton of success in some of our growth plans. It was a ton of fun, frankly, in the I would say a ton of fun after we got through some of the 2020 COVID issues. The business was really growing and it was fun to run with an incredible team. But I think a couple things really brought it to light for us. One is we finally had a management team in place in really that 2021 time period, that after lots of iterations and lots of times, there were people that could run the business without my involvement. They were talented. They had demonstrated an incredible ability to understand the business and run it. They had been with us for a long time. And frankly, I was in their way of their next promotion. There were people who were ready to be in charge of a whole business. There were people who were ready to take that next step. And that gave us a lot of confidence that the business would be in good hands moving forward and that they would bring a lot of value through the process. So it was really in the fall of 22 that we started to talk to some investment bankers. We definitely felt like it was the right time for us to find some outside resources to help with that. We were experts at running businesses. We weren't experts at selling them. I definitely weren't experts at sourcing people who would want to buy it. And those were the folks that after about 6 or 7 different conversations we had with people, we met with one group who were actually we called them for a reference on someone else, and they said, "Hey, we'd be really interested in talking to you about representing the business." And we had one meeting. There was an immediate connection. They had a plan that aligned with how we thought it could go, and they became just an integral partner for us. And I would tell you that without that investment banking group in there, we never would have gotten the value for the business we got, and we never would have probably been able to close the deal and exit that business in the time frame that we did.
Yeah. I mean, you shared with me that it was quite an accelerated timeline, and we've talked, so often business owners may try to go it alone, but shout out to all our investment banking friends out there. They do create competition. They have a proven process, and
I would also say along that line, our partners stayed with us till the deal closed. Mm-hmm. That is one of the differences, I think, of really excellent investment bankers, and where you could still, maybe sometimes they get a bad rep, but our team was with us till the last hours of that deal, pushing it across the finish line, helping us navigate some of the hurdles that always come up at the end. So we had an investment banking team, accountants and attorneys that worked incredibly well together. And yeah, I think absolutely I would encourage everyone to use professionals for this. Use a real estate agent to buy and sell a house, and this has just far greater consequences on your life and your one shot in many cases of doing this, that you would absolutely use professionals to help you through this process.
Yeah, well, that's good insight. That's good. Our guest today is Craig Kohrs. He's the founding partner of Velocity Capital Partners. This is the Finish Big podcast. I'm your host, Mark Dorman. So Craig, let's turn the page. You now are running an organization called We Are the Ripple. Of the name, I noted when I was preparing for the show, you've got ties to Africa. Tell us this story. And this seems like a very unique, you use the term mission-driven business. So what is We Are the Ripple all about?
So Ryan and I, as we founded Velocity Capital Partners, it really was intended to make some passive investments. In trying to find truly passionate business owners who we could support financially as they were trying to execute growth, that they could really find a way to take great ideas and passionate people to build a business that we could participate in with them. Where the Ripple came from, actually a young gentleman who was graduating college and had founded this brand, I would say, in his college dorm room. and we were introduced to him. We found out a little more about it and just fell in love with the concept that if we can build truly strong for-profit businesses, that they can create a strong, consistent level of charitable giving. And that's how we believe that We Are the Ripple can really help do that, of using the profits and the sales from We Are the Ripple to turn around and go support causes that are meaningful, and support causes that are meaningful, that we can help successfully try to navigate through that idea of sustained giving. There's lots of people who have done this. I think We Are the Ripple for us is something where we understand that we can take an active role in this. We were too young to be retired, but too old to start over. And I think We Are the Ripple is a great opportunity for us to take some of the success we've had, some of the blessings we've been given, and try to use those skills we built over time to do some good.
Excellent. So, and we can find this at wearetheripple.com. What are we likely to find there? I'm still a little bit unclear as to is personalized water bottles, but what's the tie to Africa?
So there is a local Cleveland-based charity called Drink Local, Drink Tap that we have partnered with. And really the function here is the fact that there are just a remarkable number of communities and individuals, especially in the Africa regions, that just don't have access to clean water. So something we take for granted every day is a basic human right that's not available to these communities, and in many cases, these children. Without clean water, they're unable to go to school. Almost 50% of global hospitalizations are due to unsanitary water sources. In many cases, these students are choosing, and most of the time, the young girls are having to choose to go find water from an unsafe source to provide for their community, which means they can't go to school, which means they can't take advantage of the opportunities that would come with that. So in our partnership with Drink Local, Drink Tap, our goal is to provide funding for them to go create clean water access for these schools and communities, that will allow the opportunity for these students and these communities to get back to school and get back to a situation where they can take advantage of all of the basic needs that we have every day. So we sell reusable water bottles. So think tumblers, some of the well-known brands like Hydro Flask or Yeti. We have similar style water bottles. And most of the time where we tend to support is through businesses, small businesses that maybe want to give employees a gift where they'll buy 25 or 50 water bottles. We'll etch the company logo on them, as well as the name and location of a community that the water bottle supported the creation of clean water access. And so it's a great story for companies to share with their employees that not only are they getting a water bottle they use every day, but part of that is to really go help build a community and do good in the world. And frankly, we're just trying to make it easier for people to do good things that most of the time they want to do anyways.
Yeah, we had a previous guest on the show. He's written a book called Mission Capital and Mission Driven Companies, where really his name is Michael Carter. He's the CEO of Biz Equity, but aligns very much trying to run really good businesses with really good, I would say, structure and a good giving, that, hey, it's okay to make money and be good people as well, right?
Absolutely. And I had listened to that episode and it definitely came back across my mind many times as we've gone through this. And business is a great way for us to create, again, that idea of sustained giving. It's fantastic to give a gift once, but to be able to do it from a sustained standpoint is truly, how I believe we can make the greatest impact.
Oh, this is great. So what's next for you, Craig? You're a young guy. How old are you now?
I am 40. I'll actually be 45 momentarily here in just a few days.
Wow.
So we are continuing to work through Velocity Capital Partners. We're always looking for opportunities to invest. Obviously, the space that we understand the best is investing, in many cases, with family businesses who are looking to grow. Many times it is a situation where there's a transition from one generation to the next, where maybe they're looking for how to structure that transition, and we can offer some help. We love business. I don't think we'll ever be done being in business, but the way we do that is to really just help others have the experiences that we were so lucky to have had. And that's really where we see Velocity and its unique ability to invest in those passionate owners and operators of businesses.
And just for our listeners, what size business? Is there any industry specificity or?
No, and I think generally we are on the smaller scale. There are lots of private equity companies out there that will invest in massive companies, or even mid-sized companies. I think from a direct investment standpoint, we tend to be looking at those smaller businesses. We've done everything from 0 to 25. I tell you that we have more fun in the smaller they are, because it's a greater impact we can have with the people who want to go run it. Want to be really excited or willing to put the work in, because as every business owner knows, it's hard work, and just really giving them the tools to be successful as they put that work in.
Yeah, well, I mean, thank God for groups like Velocity Capital Partners and for you and your brother-in-law. There's so many in our travels. We are in the succession exit planning space, quite knee deep in it, and there are so many baby boomers that don't have successor management in place, and yet they're supplying a number of jobs and economic growth for their communities. So it's groups like Mifsud and Velocity Capital Partners now that can come out and say, hey, we'll provide you a soft landing, maybe inject a little bit of new life, new vision, and keep the train moving down the tracks.
Yeah, like I said, most important thing is great teams. The most impactful thing that we ever did to be successful on our exit was trust that the people that were working for us were better than we were. Hand them the reins and got out of their way. And I think we're just looking for teams who just need that opportunity to do that. But without the team that ran that business, we wouldn't be having this conversation today. So just as we found those opportunities, and we continue to look for ways to meet and work with great people, which makes this a lot of fun for everyone.
Wow, that's a good place to end. Craig Kohrs, my friend, thank you. My guest today has been Craig Kohrs, is the founding partner, one of the founding partners, along with Ryan Mifsud of the Velocity Capital Partners. They've purchased, developed, and exited a few businesses, and are in some really cool spaces with some mission-driven capital type business projects. So, Craig, I appreciate it. On behalf of Finish Big and Bo Burlingham, myself, and our audience, have a great day. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been your host, Mark Dorman. Here's to Finishing Big.
We hope you enjoyed listening to Finish Big, the podcast with Mark Dorman from Legacy Business Advisors. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes are available. Learn more at legacybusinessadvisors.com or call 330-350-5410. Please be aware the information in these podcasts represent the views and opinions of our guests and do not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Legacy Business Advisors. The content is for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional tax or legal advice. Always seek the advice of your legal or tax professional with any questions regarding your specific situation.